It's a double whammy pure pit wall this week because we've had the back-to-back races. Are you ready to discuss both Malaysia and Japan, James?
Definitely, let's do it.
Okay, so let's rewind to the start of the Malaysian Grand Prix, and Lewis was heard over the radio talking about D-rates. How much did that affect his performance?
It affected him quite a bit. What a D-rate is, to effectively explain it, is it's quite a sharp, sudden loss of speed just before braking. You've got two sides of the power unit. You've got that providing the electrical energy through the MG UK. That's what he would feel as a D-rate, a loss of power. And then, of course, you've got the normal ICE, the combustion engine, providing the power as it normally would. And what happens is that we have ways of using that electrical energy to do an optimum lap time, or even potentially to hold it open a little bit longer, hold the K open longer, have a little bit more straight line speed to defend against cars behind. But you can't do that forever. And Malaysia is particularly difficult. There's a number of long straights there to have enough electrical energy to be able to do what you want. And for a driver, it's quite disrupting when they're trying to find their braking point to within really a few centimetres, and all of a sudden your straight line speed changes quite dramatically. Suddenly it becomes a lot harder to become consistent in that element. And what happened is he was defending aggressively against Verstappen on those opening laps, and in doing so started to run the battery down. As the battery ran down, there wasn't just enough electrical energy to keep going anymore, and Verstappen was able to get alongside.
So at that point when Verstappen overtook Lewis on lap 4 and you've got Vettel coming through the pack, how did that affect your strategy?
I think the main thing is we went in with an open mind to the race. We knew that we weren't really the fastest car going into Malaysia. We've had a number of problems across that weekend. And our focus at that point in time was making sure that we extracted everything we could. At the point that Verstappen got through, he was quite a bit faster than Lewis and able to pull away. And the next thought process came to making sure we consolidated that position that we had with Lewis, especially with Vettel losing out at the back of the pack. And what it meant is strategically now, disappointingly to some respects, you have to forget about the win, but really focus on pulling in that podium position from where he is right now.
Well, let's go to lap 32 when all of the pit stops had been completed. Lewis pitted on 26. You brought him in before Verstappen. Why did you do that?
We had an opportunity. Vettel started from the back and had done a really good job fighting his way through the grid, but was now behind Valtteri. So Valtteri was the car just in front of him. Vettel caught up to the back of him, and we had a very, very small window where Valtteri, he wasn't doing anything particularly different to normal. He was just driving his normal pace, but was able to pull Vettel outside of our pit stop window. And we were just able, as you saw on TV, just to stop and come out ahead. And that was quite important. It was a little bit earlier than perhaps we would have liked to have done, but it's quite important we didn't drop out behind Sebastian before his pit stop. You just want to avoid any interaction you can.
Once Lewis had pitted, Vettel then came in. What were the risks and the implications for Lewis at that point?
We had a difficult situation with Valtteri against Vettel. Obviously, Vettel starting on the harder of the two compounds, the soft tire. And what we were acutely aware of is that Sebastian could be a very real threat to Lewis at the end of the race. We all discussed it. We brought Lewis in on the earlier side just to make sure he was clear of Sebastian. But what it meant is that Sebastian would be on the super soft tire right at the end of the race. If we brought Valtteri in, I'm confident we would have kept Valtteri effectively ahead, avoided the undercut situation, but you would have created a situation where Ferrari would have pushed Vettel very long. That's what I would have done in that circumstance, to make sure that at the end of the race they had the tyres in the freshest state possible against Lewis, and a real risk against that P2 position. Conversely, if Ferrari took the opportunity to effectively undercut Valtteri, what it would mean at that point in time is they've committed to a very, very, very long stint on Supersoft, and they've gained the position to Valtteri. In all reality, when Valtteri would have stopped on the soft tire, I think Vettel anyway would have been quite a bit faster. So the reality is we would only have delayed the inevitable. We decided at that point in time to leave Valtteri out, let Ferrari take the opportunity they wanted it. They did, and it gave us confidence at the end of the race. We would have been in very good position with Lewis against Sebastian. But the cost was effectively we weren't able to hold up Vettel any longer.
So that's the Malaysian Grand Prix, James. We move now to the Japanese Grand Prix, and we were treated to a safety car early on, a virtual safety car, and a mixed-up order. So what did that do to your strategy straight away?
In terms of strategy for Suzuka, a couple of things to put on the table. The first one was we had very little running on Friday and on Saturday morning, with rain being quite present. So in other words, FP2, ex-wet tyre conditions, end of FP1 again, really that was wet conditions. And FP1 and FP3, which are the true dry sessions, were very cold. As we went into the race, we had track temperatures around 45 degrees, about 10 to 15 degrees higher than anything we had experienced at that point. So already, tactically or strategically, people are a little bit unsure of what's going to happen going into the race. The second element of things is it was a little bit uncertain as to whether it was a 1 or a 2 stop for a number of competitors up and down the field. For us, we'd gone in there with a plan of a 1 stop with a number of options to get out of that depending on what happened. When you have a situation like this with a safety car and a virtual safety car, actually it pushes you more towards a 1 stop. The reason why is the field doesn't have enough time to expand outwards at the right rate, and the tyres just get a little bit of reprieve, a little drop in temperature as the safety car comes out, and that helps them to achieve that 1 stop.
Let's look at the pit stops then, because it was Max who pitted first. So did you have to react to Red Bull?
Yeah, absolutely. They were doing the right things. We just had the edge on them the first stint. Max just lost a little bit of front tyre grip and dropped back, and they did what they should have done at that point in time. People, by this point, were very clearly in that 1 stop window, and he tried to attack us. Good thing to do. We had to cover really the next lap. We might have been able to push it just 1 more lap, but you would have seen 2 cars, I think, side by side coming out of the pits.
Bit of wheel-to-wheel racing, James. We like it, though. We do like that. Towards the end of the race, we had virtual safety car because of Lance Stroll's off. Was that a nervy time for you and for Lewis?
Yeah, without question. I mean, on the first stint of the race, we were just able to edge a gap that was sufficient. On the second stint of the race, it was very, very close between Red Bull and ourselves. And in fact, they were faster than us. Lewis had a gap, but a fairly sensible gap, and it just got eroded over the course of that second stint of the race. And as we got into a VSC situation, the tyres cooled down, and they're fairly worn at this point in time. You have some unknowns. Are they going to restart properly? How fast are we going to be? And it does create a big differential in performance, normally, especially on the restart. And what became abundantly clear is, as we came through that, and especially as we caught various cars in traffic, for example, Lewis was not able to pull the gap he was previously relative to Max, and you could be in quite a situation where he's able to overtake if Lewis was pushed to the point of making a mistake.
We then get to the end of the race, and it was a 1-4 for Mercedes. Did Valtteri run out of laps, or was that the best possible result for you?
I mean, the first thing is that it falls on us. We had a gearbox penalty. We didn't provide him a car that was able to really shine against his performance. He did a great job. In qualifying, he put the car P2, and in the race, he did a really good job starting on the harder of the 2 tyres, the soft tyre, and just really making his way through the field fairly effectively, getting up to the back of Daniel Ricciardo. At the end of the race, as you saw, had he had, I'm sure, just 1 or 2 more laps, he could have gone up the podium, but the race is what it is.
It is exactly that. James, thank you so much for talking us through Malaysia and Japan. Of course, next up on the calendar is the US, where things could get tasty.
Absolutely. Thank you.